So, what if an AI tutor was built not to give you answers, but to make you think? It sounds kind of wild, right? Well, this is the real story of AINO, an AI built for an actual classroom with a huge goal: help students get to those deep aha moments. But, and this is the big but, it also brought up a massive question. Could this kind of AI actually make learning more fair for everyone? Or could it accidentally leave some students even further behind?
Oh, right out of the gate, there was a pretty big problem. This quote from the teacher says everything you need to know. The students were not happy. I mean, can you blame them? They're used to AIs that just hand over the answers, no questions asked. And this new tool, it was asking them to, well, to actually work. And this wasn't just, a little bit of grumbling. This was a massive clash of expectations.
And that brings us right to the absolute core challenge of this whole experiment. How in the world do you build an AI that's for genuine learning when we live in a world that's just flooded with AIs built for instant answers? Now that is the puzzle we're going to unpack together. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break this story down into 5 key parts. First, we'll look at the tutor that asks questions. Then, the reality check when it hit the classroom. After that, putting pedagogy before technology. Then we'll get to the big idea, the metacognitive mirror. And finally, we'll wrap up with some really important lessons for an AI future. All right, section 1, a tutor that asks. So let's meet AINO. Right from the get-go, this wasn't your typical AI tutor. The whole point was not to create some kind of digital answer key. The goal was to build a thinking partner.
The entire system was built around this really powerful, ancient idea, Socratic dialogue. Instead of just spitting out facts, AINO was programmed to ask questions. Its job was to prompt, to kind of poke a little, and to guide students so they could build their own understanding, piece by piece.
And this whole philosophy was just baked right into its core design. Everything about it was intentional. You've got these short, targeted questions to keep the conversation going. The pace? It was deliberately slowed down to force students to stop and actually reflect instead of just speeding through. And here's the kicker. It made them write out their thoughts, which makes their own logic visible to themselves. The big hope behind all of this? That this kind of partner could help level the playing field for every single student.
Okay, section 2, the reality check. So as you can probably guess, that beautiful, idealistic design, it pretty quickly collided with the messy reality of a classroom and, years and years of student habits.
And honestly, this one student quote says it all. I like ChatGPT much better. The frustration was totally real. I mean, just imagine it. You ask for a simple answer, and the AI just asks you another question back. It was demanding. For students who are used to getting what they want instantly, this thing just felt slow and, frankly, kind of useless.
But the problem here was so much deeper than just a bit of frustration. The teacher started to notice something really worrying. See, just giving students access to a new tool, even a really cool, well-designed one, that alone doesn't mean they're going to use it effectively. Access just isn't enough. And this led to a really alarming unintended consequence. The hope was that this AI tutor would help close learning gaps. But the reality? The students who were already strong, the ones who were already confident, they jumped right in and started engaging with it. But the students that the tool was really meant to support, they were often the first to get frustrated and quit. So instead of closing the learning gap, this new tool was actually, accidentally, making it even wider.
Okay, section 3, pedagogy before technology. This right here, this was the turning point. The team had this big realization that the problem wasn't the tech itself, it was the approach. The solution wasn't a better bot, it was a better method. It was about putting pedagogy, the actual art and science of teaching, front and center.
So they completely changed things up and introduced a much more structured approach. No more just letting students explore freely. Now, the teacher would lead with a really clear task. Students would use AINO for one specific purpose and one purpose only. Then, they'd formulate their own written answers. And here's the crucial part. The conversations were logged and reviewed. This created a constant feedback loop, allowing them to tweak and adjust both the bot's instructions and the lessons themselves. And this is just a brilliant example of one of those key changes in action. They realized that multiple choice questions, well, they're kind of a trap. They're easy, sure, but they don't show you what a student is actually thinking. So they programmed AINO to just refuse to use them, and it would even explain why, because it wanted to help students formulate their own thoughts. It was this really clever, firm nudge away from just guessing and towards real, genuine thinking.
And the result? It was night and day. As soon as AINO was used inside these structured activities, the quality of the dialogue, the signs of actual learning, they just skyrocketed. It became crystal clear that structure wasn't limiting the students. It was the key that unlocked the AI's real power.
All right, Section 4, the metacognitive mirror. This success led to the biggest aha moment of the whole project. It was a completely new way of thinking about what this AI actually was. See, it wasn't a tutor in the way we normally think of one. It was something totally different.
They started calling it a metacognitive mirror. And I want you to just think about that metaphor for a second. A mirror. Its job isn't to give you knowledge. Its job is to reflect your own thinking back at you, so you can actually see it. You can see what you know, you can see where your gaps are, and you can see how you reason about things. It's incredibly powerful. But here's the catch, right? A mirror is only useful if you actually look into it and know what you're seeing. To benefit from this kind of tool, students need what the project called metacognitive muscles. That's the willingness and the skill to actually read, to think, and to express their own reasoning. If those muscles are weak, the mirror doesn't help, and that equity gap we talked about can actually get wider.
Which brings us to our final section, lessons for an AI future. So after all that, what are the big takeaways? This whole experiment boils down to some really practical, hard-won lessons for anyone thinking about AI in the classroom.
So here they are, the big takeaways. Number 1, pedagogy always comes before technology. The teaching method is king. 2, structure comes before freedom. You have to build the scaffolding first. 3, teach the method, not just the tool. Show them how to think with it. 4, avoid multiple choice in dialogue. It's a dead end for seeing real thinking. And finally, inspect the logs. Use the data to iterate and constantly improve.
And this all circles back to the most critical lesson here, especially when you look at it through an equity lens. These incredible new AI tools, they are not a magic bullet. If we don't provide explicit training for students who have weaker metacognitive skills to begin with, the gap between them and their peers will widen. It's that simple. Equity isn't an accident. It requires intentional design. So let's end with this one final thought to chew on. If AI is truly becoming a mirror of our own thinking, what's actually more important right now? Building a slightly better, shinier AI, or becoming better, more thoughtful thinkers who are ready to really look at what that mirror shows us?